founder of a company called Raven Red, specializing in conceptual photo shoots inspired by the world of fashion. Her work's been published in everything from Inside to In Fit magazine, Glacier, Tap, and Eloise. She's also been featured in art shows, including Una Noche de la Gloria, the Tobin Hills Art Walk, the Melinda Martinez Gallery, and one of the things that first drew her to photography, she says, was the power of light and its seemingly magical ability to transform the subject that it illuminates. Dude. All right. Give it up for Angela Michelle.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for everyone who's come out to this awesome event. Hi, my name is Angela Michelle. I'm a photographer here in San Antonio. I specialize in fashion-based conceptual shoots, photographing brides, models, actors, musicians, and just your everyday, average, extraordinary person. And here's some of the work that I do. Today, though, I want to share with you my underwater work. And the reason I want to share that with you is I hope to inspire you. Inspire you to create and never feel limited by the equipment that you have at your disposal. You see, all these underwater photos I'm sharing with you today were created with a simple point-and-shoot camera. I still manually control all my settings, including my aperture, shutter, ISO, and white balance. But it's a fairly simple, inexpensive camera, and I guarantee you that the majority of you have a much nicer camera than the one I'm using for these photos. There's often this misconception in photography that you need the latest and greatest gear to create a strong image. And while you definitely need to understand the equipment that you have, the reality is, I believe that the elements that make a photograph outstanding have little to do with equipment and more to do with you. I started doing underwater photography as a way to push myself creatively. I wanted to see if I took away all my fancy gear, could I still create a compelling photograph? Working underwater brings its own set of obstacles, and I was curious to see if I could overcome them and create in this new environment. I focused on fundamentals: vision, composition, and light. These are the components that have nothing to do with the technical abilities of your equipment, but they can really make an image successful. First is vision. This is the story that you want to tell. It's what you want to show the world, your unique point of view. Next is composition, which is more literally what you choose to show. It's how you frame the image. It's your perspective, the angle that you choose to shoot at. Using compositional techniques like rule of thirds, leading lines, and patterns, you can keep a viewer engaged in a photograph. And of course, there's light. Light is paramount to photography. Light is what inspires me as an artist. The way that it can transform a scene is incredible, and learning how to use and manipulate light is key. In this image, I use the light in a strong directional way to draw your eye to the model by placing her within the shaft of the light. On this day, the light was much softer. It was partly cloudy, and the softer light worked perfectly to emphasize the model's bright-colored red dress. Whether the light is strong, hard, and directional, or diffused and soft can really change how a scene looks. Knowing those qualities of light and how to use them is what photography is all about. This was for my first underwater shoot, and I was struggling to create an image. The model's dress kept floating up all around, and her makeup was smeared at this point. I decided to crop it tight to eliminate the makeup, and I positioned her to where the light would come from behind, allowing her dress to float all around. I realized after that first shoot that shooting underwater has its unique problems. Fabric certainly has a mind of its own. To get this shot, we probably took 30 photos just to get one where the fabric is draped perfectly over her body. Another difficult aspect of shooting underwater is I can't verbally communicate with my models. Instead, I rely on breaks where we come up for air to give instructions. Here you can see a series as I shot them in the camera. I was close to something interesting in the first 6 images, but after we came up for air, I was able to offer instruction, and we went back under for 6 more frames. This is the shot that we got from that. I love the way the hair is covering her eyes, and the position of her arms, and the shape of her dress, and the way that light is lighting up her beautiful red hair. Using the light and composition, I was able to get my vision across. So this is what it looks like behind the scenes. And you can see a stylist and assistant helping the model get in the water. I'm often working with a full team on these shoots, and I really have to give it up to these amazing people I work with. I talk about vision and storytelling, but I couldn't fulfill these creative visions without these incredibly talented people who are so dedicated to their art. I work with stylists, designers, hairstylists, makeup artists, assistants, and of course, the awesome models. I get to look a hot mess while I'm shooting, but they somehow have to look graceful, serene, and are often in uncomfortable circumstances. People often think I'm in a deep pool when I'm shooting, but really I stay fairly close to the surface. In this shot, we're barely below. Because light fades rapidly underwater, oftentimes the best photos are happening in less than 4 feet. One of my assistant's jobs is to hold me underwater while I'm shooting, to keep me from floating up. This allows me to get lower angles and different perspectives. I don't use a snorkel. Instead, I prefer just to hold my breath. I typically go under before the model, and that way I'm ready to get the shot as soon as they enter. When they come up for air, so do I. Shooting from these low angles allows me to catch reflections that play on the surface. For this shot, I'm actually laying on the pool floor with my assistant standing on my stomach. I'm shooting from almost directly under the model. Including the reflection fits my aesthetic of creating a dreamy underwater fantasy. Here's another shot that I really love. I used a reflection in the composition. It was very cloudy on this day, so I had to keep her close to the surface to get enough light. Sometimes when you're shooting, the light will dictate how you shoot, and learning to respond to your environment is a valuable asset. Underwater has its challenges, both for the teams that I work with and myself. We're often finding elements beyond our control, and my equipment is basic. But by focusing on vision, composition, and light, I hope I've shown you that great photography can be created against the odds. Thank you.
Wow, that's beautiful. Just a couple quick questions. How did you get into underwater photography?
Honestly, it was just a way for me to push myself creatively. I wanted the challenge of it. I knew it was going to be challenging, and I just feel like the more I can do photography in any medium, in any way, it's going to make me a better photographer.
And for those who are curious, what kind of camera? Do you use one of those new waterproof point and shoots?
So I'm actually using, for camera buffs out there, it's a Canon A650, and it's a simple point and shoot camera, but I bought the underwater housing kit for it, so it completely protects the camera.
But can you see that through the viewfinder, or do you just find yourself shooting like this?
Well, when you're underwater, it's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see, but it's kind of like the old film days where you really know what you get when you're looking at it.
And can you focus even?
Yeah, you still can control the focus.
And where do you shoot this? What pool? Do you
People,
find models like that in a pool here in San Antonio?
people graciously let me use their pool. Friends, clients, all kinds of people come out of the woodwork to let me use their pools.
And where can people find more of your work?
RavenRedPhoto.com.
Cool. Give it up for Angela and Michelle. Thank